something like money?
Welcome to another episode of Practice Prosperity. We have a special guest, Wendy Pitts Reeves. She's a licensed clinical social worker and a practice coach. So we have somebody who coaches, but is actually in the game as well. So we have a nice balance here. And she's going to discuss things that practice owners, especially mental health practice owners, should think about when going to practice. Thank you very much for joining me, Wendy.
Thank you, Randall. It's a treat to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
So let's start off. So this is actually a continuation of a podcast that I was on yours. So she has a podcast. I want everybody to please check her podcast out. But first, introduce yourself, your practice, and the type of clients that you serve.
Thank you. Yes. So I do a little bit of a lot of things. I'll say that, but more than anything, basically, I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been working in mental health for a very, 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 very long time. And over the years, I have diversified. I do lots of different things. I ran a group practice for a long time. I sold that practice during the pandemic. And as a part of running a group practice, I was constantly teaching therapists how to get their practice off the ground, and began doing that officially about 10 years ago. So today, I still have a small counseling practice that I keep going because I enjoy it. I still love it. I have a podcast called Ideal Practice, where we talk about how to craft a private practice that is ideal to you. And then I coach practice owners across the country. So a little bit of all of that. Yeah, which is how you and I met, is through the podcast. We had a lovely conversation about P&Ls.
In this recording, we're about to go into tax season. So if anybody's prepping, please listen to that episode about P&L.
Yeah, we should link it for sure. We should give them a link to it. 100%.
It will be down in the description below. Thank you for that. So a lot of people are listening to this and I want to go into practice. I desire to go into practice, but I may not have a mentor. I may not have a coach like you. What is something that you wished every practice owner, aspiring practice owner, should know before they make that leap?
Oh, that's a great question. There are so many things, but I think one of the biggies that it took me a long time to wrap my head around is you have to make peace with profit.
Okay.
You have to because profit is a dirty word in the healing arts. We are taught not to care about that. That's something that you're a bad person if you care about that. And most people go into private practice because they want to serve their clients the way they want to. They're tired of the rules and structures of working in hospitals and agencies. That's a common reason people will go. They think they want the freedom that comes with it, but you and I both know that when you run your own practice, freedom is a tricky thing, right? But the number one thing that trips up practice owners, to me, is their discomfort with profit. Like, they don't want to think about it. They don't want to talk about it. And I certainly didn't. I didn't want to touch money when I first started my practice. Like, literally, physically did not want to touch it. I can tell you some funny stories from that. It took me a long time to get over that and to realize that money and the financial aspect of my relationship with my clients was every bit as important as every other clinical aspect we were working on. All of it. It's all part of it. And that's really squirmy. It makes people really squirmy, but you got to get there or you will never make it. You may struggle along, limp along, but you will not thrive, and you will not have nearly the level of joy and impact and freedom that you want if you don't learn how to get comfortable with the concept of profit.
My experience in finance is something happens that causes that trigger, that shift, especially when it comes to business. What was your moment where it was like, no, profit's important. No, profit is a good thing. Profit is something that shows I'm winning with clients. What was that shift in your life?
That's a great question too. I won't say there was one pivotal moment, but I will say there were a couple of sort of key things. One was very early on, like in the first few years I was in practice. I was taking a particular insurance that we had in Tennessee, and was terrible at filing claims, terrible at following up on claims that didn't go through, terrible at paying attention to it all because I literally did not want to look at it. And I lost something like $13,000 in the first year in work that I had done that I would never get paid for. That was the first of many lessons like that, actually. Over time, what evolved was uh, probably two biggies. One is that I met colleagues who had never ever fooled with insurance. Well, one did, one didn't, but they both had a very different approach to the financial side of their practice. They were completely comfortable with it, didn't blink about what they charged, always charged more than me, and had a level of confidence that in the beginning I would look at that and go, how do you do that? You know, like, what is that? But that became a model for me, just watching them and being in their presence. Like I had never even, I couldn't even consider that, right? So that was really helpful. And then essentially over time, as my own confidence in my work grew, as my reputation grew, as my practice was the go-to practice in my community for literally 20 years. Like we were the bee's knees, honestly. And as I just sort of grew with it, right? We evolve as business owners, right? As human beings and as business owners. And the day came, and yeah, well, maybe this was the pivotal moment. The day came, I don't even remember when it was. I want to say around 2015, 2016. I had been through a divorce. I was, I had a house payment. I had two teenagers at the time. Like nobody was coming to rescue me. And I had been slowly shifting my practice to a self-pay practice. Yeah, this is the moment that really, really, really shifted things. I had slowly been resigning from insurance panels, sort of making that pivot, but very slowly over a few years. And it got down to where my very last insurance company was the major carrier in my area. And probably half of my practice was still on that particular policy. So I had a decent amount of self-pay by that point. I got the new contract for that insurance in the mail, and they had cut my hourly rate, reimbursement rate, by 50 cents. That doesn't sound like much. This particular company, I won't name the company, I know that today this has gotten better, but at the time that this happened, they were only paying me a little bit more than they paid me like in the 90s. Like their rates had never really changed very much. And then they cut it. And I remember sitting at my desk, and it was paper, like they mailed it to me. Today it'd be an email, which is kind of weird. But they mailed it to me. And I remember reading that and looking at the reimbursement schedule, what I would get. It doesn't matter what you charge in your practice. You're going to get paid whatever managed care says you're going to get paid. And I remember looking at that and thinking, this is just wrong. Mm-hmm. And I would never work for another employer where I didn't get a raise for 20 years. Like, it's just ridiculous. So before I could lose my nerve, before I could change my mind, I have talked about this on my podcast, I tore that contract in half and threw it away. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the very next hour, that day, I started telling my clients, I need to let you know, I'm going to be making some changes into how I run my practice. And it was scary because I had a house payment, and I am me. It was just me. And it felt like a huge risk. And I knew what I was doing. By the time I had gotten to this point, I had had enough coaching. I had had enough life experience. I had run a successful practice for a long time. I knew how to do this. I knew how to craft a package. I knew how to sell. I knew how to talk about finances with clients in a way that was supportive of them and wasn't squeamish and playing small. I knew the value I brought to the table. I knew as a clinician how to manage it, right? So the truth is I was ready for that, but it was still scary. And what I told them was, we've got a few months. Don't worry. We're going to take 3 months to do this. It's not going to happen fast. I got 90 days. And in those 90 days, I'm going to take care of you. It's going to be all right. I got to figure out a few things. I don't have all the answers yet. So I started telling them I was doing this before I had it figured out. And then over the next few weeks, they were like, have you got it figured out yet? You got it figured out yet? But in the end, when the dust settled, I didn't really lose any clients. I had one who was kind of ready to wrap up anyway, a young adult whose parents were covering her work, and she was kind of ready. I had one that chose to let me refer them to somebody else. They went to somebody else like 2 times, 3 times, came back to me. So I didn't really lose anybody. Yeah, that was a
It,
big
it,
deal.
it's funny because as business owners who've done this for a while, we know the pain it causes to undercharge. And we
Yes.
tell anybody we see, hey, charge a fair rate. That's the first thing. It'll make your life a whole bunch easier. But we know they have to go on that journey.
Yeah.
Um, and I have not, and maybe because you're doing this regularly, shortcut that process of telling people to charge a fair rate because it is a confidence, it is an exposure thing that you spent to other people, and it is of there's a saying in the South, tired of being tired, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sick
Yeah.
and tired of being
Sick
sick
and
and
tired
tired.
of being sick and tired.
And
Yeah.
so it's that element. So let's shift gears because I like to hear about people's genius, like really know what they know, stuff that folks pay you for on a regular basis. You have a 7 pillar framework.
Hmm.
I would love to go first on why you created the 7 pillar framework, and let's break down each pillar because I think that would be value add to this audience.
Okay. Sure. 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 Yeah. So I mentioned I've been in the field for a very long time. And in this group practice that I grew, not having any idea what I was doing, I learned a lot of lessons, most of them the hard way, right? That's what happens. And when I think about, as I began coaching people and started seeing patterns in the kind of ways that folks were getting themselves into trouble, and began to like think, what is it really that makes a practice work? It isn't one thing. Like there isn't, like I'm all about having a niche. That's all well and good. And there are practice coaches out there who are brilliant, who teach you how to do a group practice or teach you how to add retreats to your practice or teach you how to add courses to your practice. And all of those are good and important things. But what a truly healthy practice needs a lot of like a variety of things. And when I really started sitting down and thinking about it, what it kind of settled into in my mind were 7 key areas that just need to be healthy. And I call it your ideal practice because what's ideal for you will be different than what works for somebody else. But these 7 pillars have to be in there no matter what your practice looks like. Would you like me to like just give you kind of a really quick overview of each one? Do you like,
What
yeah?
I would love if can we go through each pillar and
Yeah.
just have a slight back and forth on each one. That way the audience can fully consume what you're thinking about.
Happy to do that. We might be here till tomorrow, but sure. Yeah. So the first one is perspective, not perspective, purpose. Perspective is the last one. Look at me mixing up my P's right off the bat. The very first one, the 7 pillars of an ideal practice, the very first one is purpose. And I start there for a reason. Because when you know your why, when you know why, not just why you are in this field, not just why you want to help people, but why you want to be a business owner, because that's a whole thing all by itself. When you know that, that will pull you through the tough times. So, in my mind, when you've got this nailed down, when you dig into it, reflect on it, journal about it, meditate on it, and revisit it from time to time, you will know why you do what you do, and you will have a potent and a powerful vision for the business that you are building. The business, not just the work, not just the healing work itself, but the business that supports that. So I
What
start
are
with that. Yeah.
what are one or two whys that you have seen people, hold on, be able to, because business is hard. You have
Yeah.
to do a lot of things. So what are a
Yeah.
couple whys people can hold on to? It's like, oh yeah, I think that's my why, or types of whys.
Yeah. One of my favorites, I had a therapist who joined my practice who had been she worked with elders. So she'd worked in nursing homes and assisted living. And she decided to start a little baby practice on the side. And I invited her to join me. And I remember her saying to me, I don't really expect a whole lot out of this. I just want to make enough money that maybe I can take my family to Disney next year. Like that would really be kind of sweet. And I remember looking at her and going, I think we can do that. And it took her probably, I mean, yes, we did that. Of course, we did that. It probably took her about 2 years to really kind of work out the kinks about how to run her business. But today, I mean, that's been a long time ago. Today, I still know her. She's right around the corner from where I am now. She is rocking and rolling. She is in such high demand. She quit the side work a long, long time ago. Um, she can see the people she wants to see, serve them the way she wants to serve them, and leave early to go pick up her kids from school, take her family on vacation, like live a life that she has power over that and can shape it the way she wants to. I can tell you another therapist that I worked with and this is in the very beginning when I first started coaching. So I didn't even work with her that long because today I tend to work with people longer. But back then I was just sort of figuring stuff out and testing it. I didn't coach her very long, but we've made some pretty dramatic changes in a very short time. And in her case, she was working a second job to make ends meet. She had a full-time private practice and a family. But she was so conflicted about how she was handling the financial side of things that she was losing money and she had taken on a second job just to make ends meet. By the time we figured out some things, which I'll talk about as we go, she made the changes she needed to make in her practice that were so effective that she was able to not only quit the second job, her clients got better faster. Like it affected her clinical work. And she bought a building and launched her own practice. I mean, her own little group practice because she bought a place. Those are two really good examples of a why.
Yeah, I don't think enough is talked about if the therapist is well, how much better they can perform.
100%.
And I think the government agency model does society a disservice because they kind of grind them into the ground, multiple hours, not enough resources or support. And how do you, if this is supposed to be a social welfare, how is that helping anybody? You're just having people suffering together, which is tough. Okay, so the first one is it why or is it purpose?
Purpose.
First one's purpose. Okay. What is our second pillar?
Second one is people. And that is what I mean by that is serve the ones you love. Okay. You need to know your ideal client. And when you've got this nailed down, and it will change also over time, it will change. But when you know your ideal client, you know them inside and out. You know what drives them. You know what worries them. And the most important thing is you know what serves them. And that's a critical a critical difference because people will come to you asking for help in a certain area. And we often will see what the real problem is. And it may or may not be what folks think the problem is. But when you know your ideal clients and you really, 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 really get them, like you know them better than they know themselves, then you will design your practice around how to deliver what's really going to make a difference for them. It makes everything easier when you know who you serve. And it needs to be somebody you love working with. That you like, it's like the kind of people that you like. My favorite is when you look at your calendar for the day and you're like, oh, I get to see them today. Yay. Like that's when you know you got it. Yeah.
I think that's so awesome. I know in the finance world, nobody buys holistic financial planning. People buy, can I retire?
Yeah.
How can I retire? How can I improve my financial circumstances? Nobody wants the whole package. So how do you find that pain point?
Yeah.
And I think a growth there for me is it's not where they should be, it's where they are.
Yep.
And market to where they are and then take them potentially to where you feel like would improve their financial situation.
And I bet you know your clients and the blocks that they have and the ways they have gotten in their own way. And when you can see where they are without judgment and can help them see where they are without judgment, then you can help them get where they want to go because you understand them inside and out. Yeah.
And I think that's spot on. The more you know your client base, your target market, the more empathy you have.
Yes.
You understand the journey that they took there, and you can speak to that, where they're sensitive and all those things. So people, so who you serve is an important factor of your practice. And
it's figuring out your ideal client. It's your target market, right? If you are trying to serve everybody, you're not serving anybody, and you will wear yourself out. Like it makes life so much easier when you spend a little time getting clear about who you really, really want to work with. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people focus a lot on the demographics, but I think what we're touching on here is also the psychographics.
100%.
How they move, how they do different things is just as important. So I think spot on. So
You remember one of the first questions I asked you was, why are you doing financial work specifically with healers? Because I was really interested in that. That was part of your evolution as a business owner. Yeah,
correct.
it's very cool.
So we have purpose, people. What's number three for
Number
us?
3 is product.
Product.
Okay. Yeah. So in the mental health world, everyone's going to think of that as your service, your 1 hour a week with a client. But first of all, I don't just work with therapists. I work with any kind of healing arts folks. So they're massage therapists, energy healers, yoga practitioners, all different kinds of folks. But the tendency is to only think in terms of dollars for hours. So when your product, even if your product is you, what this looks like is you have an irresistible offer that provides your client with the resources they need to get the results that they most want through a service that just works. Okay. So you help them get the results they want. But how do you do that? Well, it might be that you talk to them an hour a week. It might be you have a course, a parenting course. It might be that you do a mixture of a group and individual work. It might be that you are hosting events or at one point I had a little side gig going that was an adventure-based business that was not technically part of my clinical work, but was completely supportive of the clinical work, an adventure business. So what is it? What are you selling? How are you helping your clients, those ideal clients, get the results that they're looking for? Yeah, the product.
It is so hard for service-based business to think of themselves as a product, a nice package. We
Yes.
think of a product as a widget, something you tweak on. But once you take a step back and see yourself as a product, little things change. The words I
Yeah.
use with my clients, the time that I spend with them. Everybody does not want to talk for an hour with you, but you can find ways to serve them in a different way and possibly a more effective way. And I think
Yep.
once, like you mentioned, you're moving from instead of dollars for time to actually impact.
Yeah. The difference that, yeah. I had a coach once who used to say, charge for the difference it makes, not the time it takes.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that also goes back to, it sounds like this is moving in a sequential order, the people. Because if you care about the people enough, you will become innovative and creative to the point where your product, which is the service you offer, does
Yeah.
improve.
Yes, you're right. I do list these in a particular order for a reason. Exactly. Yeah. First, you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. Second, you need to know who you serve. And when you are clear about that, like it's really awesome to think about all the different ways you can serve them along their journey with you before they ever meet you, when you first get started with them, when you're in the meat of the work with them. How about later on when they have done the hard, they're kind of in a better place, but you want to support them ongoing. What are all the different ways that you can serve them? When you're creative, there's a lot you can do. Yeah. And product is kind of like the word profit. Like it has, I don't want people to think that I'm objectifying the work because I'm not. I did like it because starts with a P. But it really is. It's like it's what are you selling? Because you are selling something, and what you're selling serves these people that you care about so much. Yeah.
And I think also it's moving away from the how insurance puts you in a box.
Yes.
And also
Absolutely.
how your industry may put you in the box. And once you get outside that box, guess what? You're differentiated, and differentiation creates a premium.
Amen. Yep. 100%.
So we talk about purpose,
Mm-hmm.
people, product. I'm excited. What's next?
Do tell. Number 4, I use the word process. And what I mean by this are your planning, your systems, like your infrastructure of your business, the process by which you deliver your services. A lot of healing arts folks tend to be more right brain. They're creatives. They feel their way through things. I don't want to. I don't want to make a generalization here that may not be fair, but in my experience, that's often the case. And it takes a lot to run a business, and your business will run smoother when you've got tight systems in place. So when your process is solid and constantly being tweaked, you will have developed clear and effective habits, systems, and boundaries that make life easier. Just make life easier for your team. If you have a team, make life easier for your clients and for yourself so that your business is more profitable and enjoyable for everybody. Right? Yeah. So you're not killing yourself. You're not wearing yourself out, reinventing the wheel every time you turn around. You've got things set up in a way that where things flow. I am a huge believer in systems. So the process by which you deliver your services, it's worth improving. Look, I guarantee you there are ways you can make it where it works better for your clients. And this also, it doesn't just make life a little bit easier for you. It can be a point of friction for your clients. You can lose business if you don't have this dialed in as well, which I talked about on my own podcast this week. Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this morning about the YouTube channel that I have, and you have to take a step and realize I'm the bottleneck.
Yeah.
I'm the reason some of these frustrations happen. And if I sit down, document what I would like to happen, potentially I can outsource this, or I can just be extremely efficient. I also heard another business person say that if you don't try your best to make a repeatable, consistent process for your customers,
Yeah.
actually not doing business adequately. And we, as I consider myself someone of healers or somebody who works as a service-based business, we think we want to be creative, one-off, very customization, all those big things. But it's really that repeatable, what somebody can expect again and again, that moves the needle.
And builds trust. Okay, so here's an interesting little thing here. Systems support creativity. So when I talk about having a structure in your business, having your process nailed down in your business, I'm not talking about cookie cutter delivery in terms of the work that you do. That's where we talked about in terms of product. That's where you get creative, but how you deliver it, how you do your billing, how you handle phone calls and emails, how you handle new client registrations, how you handle a no-show or a late cancellation, how you pay your taxes, like all of that. If you systematize that, then you will free up energy that will go into creatively serving your ideal clients. So this isn't about sticking you back in a box. It's freeing you up so you can do your best work as creative as you want, because you're not spending time figuring out this other stuff. Does that make sense? Does that help?
It does. Personally, I remember early on in my career, I used to send clients invoices.
Yeah.
And now I do an automatic payment that automatically withdraws the payment amount. You may think, well, does a client like that? Yes, they do. They don't have to actually click and put their credit card information in every single month.
Yep.
On top of that, if there's a missed payment, I'm not picking up the phone and saying, hey, what happened? Or I don't turn into a bill collector. So
100%.
Now
yep.
I can love on my clients as the professional versus doing something an accounts payable person may do.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of my pet peeves is scheduling. It drives me crazy that I have to call somebody's office and go through sometimes the person themselves, but often a front desk person or an assistant or whatever, and figure out a calendar and go, well, what do you have on Tuesday? What do you have on Thursday? Just give me a scheduling link that shows me your calendar and let me just go in and pick a time that works for me. Like, I don't want to, like, it's so much easier. Like, make it easy for me, please. Don't make it hard for me to see you. And what your point is, don't make it hard for me to pay you either. Yeah. Yeah, that's a process issue.
And another improvement as far as process, you schedule that meeting, but it also sends you a confirmation email, which you can add to your Google Calendar.
Yes.
So it's those touch points that you can't do that. All right. So purpose, people, product, process. It gets better.
Next one is payment.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to love this. Okay, so this is interesting. So I will tell you, I go back and forth on this. I keep thinking, should I call it? We're talking about the money side of your practice. Should I call it profit? Everybody says I should call it, but no, because profit is part of this. But really, I am literally talking about all the ways money flows in and out of your practice. Okay, so when you have your payment systems in place, what will happen is you have a healthy pricing structure which is tricky, a healthy pricing structure and a payment system that does a couple of things. It accurately reflects the results you deliver. It's easy for clients. In other words, it matches the value of what you're doing, right? It fits the good work that you're doing. It's easy for clients to manage, which is what you were just talking about. And it pays your desired salary because you better be getting a salary. So it's all like there are so many tricky ways that payment trips people up. One of the most common ones that I see when I'm coaching therapists or practice owners, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I don't do insurance. I'm all self-pay." Oh, good for you. What are your rates these days? Well, I have 2 clients at this rate and 3 at this rate and 1 at that rate and 6 at this rate. Like they have this crazy complicated system, and when you really start looking into it, they are not accurately reflecting the value of what they do, because over time their rates have changed, or they felt sorry for somebody, gave them a discount, or they were avoiding some kind of a hard conversation. And over time, their business gets really, really wobbly and inconsistent, and the process is messed up, right? And their payments become tricky and hard to manage. For me, the biggie in this area was back when I had an insurance-based practice, because I was so bad at that. I got better over time, and I did eventually hire help, which made a huge difference. Lots of lessons there too. But having a clear payment system, a clear pricing structure, and there's lots to consider in all that. It's fair and equitable. It's an honorable exchange of energy between you and your clients. It's easy for them. They get that, they understand it. And you're making the money you need to pay yourself, which is kind of the whole point.
I love how this process is so I guess progressive, in a sense that if you have the right people, you know how they want to pay.
Yeah.
If you have the right process for the people, the payment is easy. They actually appreciate. And like you said, I think you mentioned somebody went to somebody else. One reason somebody comes back is it was so much easier to just pay.
Yeah.
And we think that's a minor thing, but if you add an extra step to somebody's life, they won't be happy about that.
It's friction. Make
Yes.
it makes it harder, make it easier. And if you're good at what you do,
Yes.
if you're good at what you do and you provide, like you really are making a difference in someone's lives, they will find a way to pay you, right? Now, there are realities that people have to work with, and sometimes they just can't, even when they want to. Okay, well, help them find a service somewhere else that's going to work for them. Take care of them that way. Like hand them off with love to somebody else that's going to be a better fit for them. But 9 times out of 10, they'll find a way to work with you if they really want to.
Yeah, if you're making that measurable difference in their life, people
Yep.
will move money where
Yeah,
it's necessary.
I do. We all
Yeah.
do. We pay for the cell phone we want. We
Mhm.
pay for the jeans we want. We pay for the car we want. We find a way to pay for the things that we care about. And when somebody sees us and hears us and is helping us where we hurt the most, which is the kind of work that I do,
Yeah.
well, that's worth paying for. Yeah. Yeah. So payment. That's pillar number 5.
Payment, purpose, people, product, process, payment. We have 2 more to go. What's the 6th one?
I do love alliteration. Okay. Part of my own process. Number 6 is promotion, marketing. Okay. Your people need you. And if they don't know about you, they can't find you. So this is another piece that people struggle with in my world, because marketing of any kind they think it's icky.
Yeah.
They feel like it's bragging. They feel like they're pushing themselves on people. That is not what this is at all. Promotion is promoting the quality of your work, promoting the services that you do. When you promote your work, your service effectively, what that means is that you have a clear and compelling brand message. We don't think about brands, but they are important. It means that you have identified specific marketing strategies that are online and off. People tend to lean too heavily one way or the other, online and off, that work with your strengths. Like you don't have to do social media if you don't want to do social media, but you got to do something. And that in that promotion, it's effective because you are finding ways to reach the people who need you and you are finding ways to motivate them to take action for their own sake and reach out to you.
I think going back from the beginning, if you know the people, know how to serve them and do it well, you would do those people a disservice not to tell them that you're out there and that you have a solution for them. If you have
Right.
that true compassion,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to step aside and let the world know in the way the world receives
Yeah.
information nowadays.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the idea of selling as service?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like when we think about promotion, we think about, the used car salesman kind of idea. We think selling is icky, but it is not. When I have something that really is going to help you, I feel like I have a responsibility, an ethical responsibility to make sure you know about it. And then you can choose to take me up on it or not. That's totally up to you, and I honor and respect that. But I at least need to make sure you know that you have this as an option.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Spot on, spot on.
Yeah.
We're at the last one.
Last one.
Nervous. Let's go.
Yeah. Last one is perspective. That's where I said in an error at the beginning, perspective. And that is that mindset is everything. Okay. I had a coach say to me that you can have all the best strategies in the world, but if your mindset is wonky, you're going to self-sabotage every time. So when your perspective, your mindset is healthy and strong and grounded and centered, what that means is that you have a healthy, success oriented and abundant perspective. And it means that you are fully what I like to call at cause in your business, as opposed to being at effect in your business. And you claim your power to live as the creator of your own life and business. Your business doesn't happen to you. You happen to it. You craft it. You create it. And your mindset is clear that this is me. This is all mine. And whatever works, doesn't work, whatever, it's all mine, and it's awesome and good. And you are coming at it from that sort of healthy, grounded, abundant place. Yeah.
So I talk to business owners all the time, and you hear the economy's bad.
Yeah.
So and so isn't buying anything anymore. But all those listening, and they're valid reasons.
Yep.
But if you have the right perspective of, I need to get this service out to the people who need them, and I know they need it, I know they'll enjoy it, I know they'll love it, I think you like take a step out of yourself and make things happen.
Yeah. 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 It's easy in my world for people to blame the economy. Of course, we always like it's the economy's fault. Well, what does that mean exactly? Who is the economy? Right. In my world, it's insurance companies, third party reimbursement. If you have an insurance based practice, but if you're an energy healer or a yoga practitioner, you don't get to use insurance, right? And one of my favorite coaches that I did a lot of work with, she used to say, when you have a job, when you have a job, somebody else is in charge of your life, and you don't have a whole lot of power. But when you are an entrepreneur and you are running your own, when you're the CEO of your own show, as I say, then you always have the power to come up with something new, create something, try something, experiment with something. What happens in your practice? And I'll tell you, Randall, this is one of the things that I loved when I started my practice that I did not expect. So I never expected to own a business at all. I wanted to work in a hospital, maybe teach at a university. Like I liked variety, but I didn't grow up with business owners around me. I hated the word business when I am such a social worker, like through and through. Like, I don't care about that silly business stuff. That's about that money. How boring is that? When I started to practice, and I started practice because we were adopting our firstborn, and I wanted to be a part-time mom, mom. I want to be a mom at home. So I didn't want to put my kids in daycare full time. I wanted to work part time, and I couldn't find a position that matched my skills. So I started to practice mostly out of desperation because I couldn't figure out any other way to be home with my kids. Quite to my surprise, what I found was what I loved was the responsibility, being at cause in my practice. If things went well, that's because I was doing something right. If things didn't go well, it's because I had a lesson to learn. But either way, it was up to me to fix it. And I loved that. Not everybody does. And it took me a while to understand that not everybody is cut out for this. And I know folks who've given it a shot and were like, I'd rather go back to a job where somebody else figures it all out. Nothing wrong with that. But for me, When you are at cause, it means I decide what happens in my life, even when it feels terrible, even when it feels like it's bigger than me. I always have agency. And I'd just as soon have it that way, personally.
Yeah, people say, I'm a business owner. I work with business owners. They automatically think I want everybody to be a business owner.
Yeah.
That's not the case
Yeah.
because of what you just described.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do not want to own their circumstances. They want to have a boss for things to fall back on. They want to have a boss to ask questions. They want to have coworkers to collaborate with, which is a
Yep.
beautiful thing.
Yep.
But if you want to go out in this world, you have to appreciate and honor and embrace that. What did you call it? At cause?
Being at cause as opposed to being at effect.
Oh.
When and this is, I didn't make this up. This is something I learned from this coach that I love so much. I learned a lot from her in particular. She was talking about when you are at effect, it means you are your cause and effect. It means that I am on the receiving end of what happens to my business. Like things just happen. It just happens to me. I am on the effect end of it. But when you are at cause, it means I happen to my business. So if a client doesn't pay me, it's up to me to figure out how did I set that up. If my expenses are outrunning my income, it's up to me to figure out how did I set that up. If my caseload isn't where I want it to be, it's up to me to figure out how to fix that. If I'm bored, it's up to me to figure out how to shake things up a little bit, right? If I am working 40-hour weeks and I really want to work 20-hour weeks, it's up to me to figure out how to fix that. So I'd rather have it that way. I have known some really, really good practitioners who were excellent at their work that went into private practice for a couple of years and were like, I'm not liking this, and went back to work at a hospital or an agency. And the first few times I ran into that, I was like, why would you do that? Why would you want to do that where you have no power and no freedom? And they're like, because I don't want to think about promotion. I don't want to
Yes.
figure out the payment system. I don't want to have to deal with the anxiety of knowing if I'm going to get paid or not. I don't want to have to think about my system, like whatever. Okay, then you're right. Go do what you want. Me, what's really important to me, one of my big whys, besides the work itself, is very fulfilling to me. My coaching work is very fulfilling to me. I'm always on a high after I get off a coaching call, and honestly, after a podcast interviews too. I feel the same way about that. Yeah. But a big why for me is time freedom.
Yeah.
Like time matters more to me than money. I've had to make myself care about money. I've had to learn through mistakes to care about money. So I'm a lot better at that than I used to be. But really what I care about is time. If I want to take a 3-week trip, I want to be able to take it. If I want to take the day off because it's a beautiful day and go to the mountains, I want to be able to do that. That matters to me more than anything, really. So that drives a lot of things. Yeah.
Perspective. So just to recap, purpose, people, product, process, payment, promotion, and last, perspective.
7 pillars of an ideal practice.
7
Thank
pillars.
you.
Now let's go into your practice, how you think. So I love to see how practitioners are actually operating because that really, I feel like people can borrow different things. So let's talk about how do you either invest money or spend time to gain clients?
To gain clients. Well, the number one way I do, I mean, I've done lots of things over the years. Okay. Maybe let me talk about sort of a before and after. In the early days of my practice, when I was just trying to get things off the ground, I did a lot. The main thing I did was public speaking. Okay. I spoke at every Sunday school class, Wednesday night church dinner, parent group. I was working with kids back then. I don't now, but I used to. Anybody who would have me, I would speak to. A teachers group, like anybody anywhere that would have me, I would go speak. Chamber of Commerce. I did lots of speaking. I did lots of networking, and I mean in my town. I don't mean in my industry. So I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I started going to mixers. I hated them. Hated them. There's a whole skill set to learn how to handle that, but I did that. I volunteered. One of my favorite ways to get clients is volunteer work, because I found groups that I cared about that had a mission that I was in alignment with, and I joined them. Like I served on boards. I helped with fundraisers. I joined events, right? Because when people know you personally and then they need help, they're going to call you. When their friends need help, they're going to call you, right? I was really active in my church at the time. I used to, and I led parent groups in the church. So I was physically out and about in my community in 100 different ways. So a lot of that, I had a column in the paper. Now that's kind of changed. Today, rather than that, I would have probably a Substack newsletter or something like that, where you start to sort of like create a space where your opinion gets out there. I don't know that people read blogs so much, but they serve a function. But so writing, but mostly speaking and physically being out and about, getting known in town. And I mean, I really did that really hard. As at one point,
Mhm.
At one point, I ran for public office. I served on the county commission in my town. And when I was knocking on doors, people would be like, "Oh, I recognize your name," because they had seen me doing all this other stuff for my business, right? So that was a biggie. Now today, fast forward 20 or 30 years, I don't need to do that anymore. People know who I am, and I don't have that robust a practice anymore. I don't really want that much. The main thing I do today is my podcasts. I have done blogging. I had a weekly blog I ran for 7 years that I was religious about. I had a YouTube channel like you. I did that for a year. I published a video every week. I was sort of testing that medium. For me personally, podcasting has been a game changer. I really, really, really love it. And I get a fair amount of coaching from that. Yeah.
I think in this digital age, people don't realize that hand-to-hand combat is still the most effective way.
Yes.
Speaking, talking to people, volunteering. That's what makes people swipe their card.
Yeah. Well, it's
All
what makes
those,
people call you when they need something. They'll call you because they trust you already, because they know you as a human being, not just as a website. So it makes a difference. Yeah.
and they'll see your post and they'll double tap and like, but there's nothing like, and this may sound very old school, maybe archaic, they have to smell your pheromones. They have to see you smile, laugh. They have to
Yeah.
know that you can actually listen to them and know
Yeah.
them. And that's not going away yet. It could change, but in the near, let's say 10 years, I don't think that's going to change at all.
It won't. And what you're talking about is your energy, the energy you bring to the mix. And when people are in the room with you, physically in the room with you, they feel that. They don't even know that they're doing it. It's unconscious, but they feel it. And it's like, we need to get some help with our finances. That Randall that we met, he was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Maybe we could talk to him. What do you think? He didn't seem so scary.
it is. Yeah, honey, what do you think? That's how that conversation
Yeah.
goes. Um, how do you, in the same thing, spend time, spend money? How do you differentiate what you do as far as either coaching, or you could do differentiate the work you do in your podcast? Like, what are you spending money and time to make that difference?
It's well, I do spend money and time, but mostly it's about the message. Your
Okay.
messaging, I think, is the critical thing. So I mentioned that I still have a little counseling practice. Over the years,
Mhm.
who I serve has changed because my interests have changed. What I like to do has changed. And at this phase of my life, in my later career, what I have realized is that people I serve as a coach are very similar to the people I want to serve in my counseling work. They tend to be, for the most part, they tend to be women leaders at midlife who are like 40s, 50s, 60s, who are sort of badasses and it's kind of a force to be reckoned with in their own life, whether they are practice owners on the coaching side or whether they are just, corporate execs or business owners, or sometimes even a stay-at-home mom who just didn't realize that she's got this in her. Like that does happen sometimes too. And I work with guys too, but I have a real heart for those kinds of folks because they are often exhausted and no one around them knows how hard it is because they make it look easy, but it isn't. And nobody knows the personal price that they pay, whether they're running a business practice or whether it's just their life. So how I differentiate are a couple of things. On the counseling side, I speak to those people, first of all,
Mhm.
in my languaging, in the phrasing that I use, in the messages that I want to teach. I have a group that I run that meets once a month that is designed specifically to serve those people who have crazy busy lives. And that group meets once a month, and we do retreats twice a year. Like it's kind of a thing. On the coaching side, I talk about the stuff I'm talking about with you today, which is a lot comes back to basically taking yourself seriously and believing in yourself and owning your authority as a professional, as an expert in what you do, and to stop playing small about that and step forward into your business and like do what you're capable. You can do this, right? I'm a very direct person. I don't beat people up, like it's not on purpose, but I do call folks out on things and I do push people. I challenge people, and I'm known for that. Like, I think you could take this up a notch. What do you think? You know, and I hold people accountable. And that, I think that's kind of unique. Not, I'm sure there are other people out there like that, but I think what's unique to me is honestly the money mindset is a big piece of it because so much of it comes back to that. I'm sort of known for that.
So the next thing we have to talk about is paying taxes. A lot of business owners get in trouble on how they plan to pay their taxes. Have you done that in the past, and how are you doing that now?
I set aside 20% of every dollar I make in a special savings account for taxes so that I don't have to even worry about it. And that pretty much does the trick. Yeah. That's ebbed and flowed over the years. There have been times when I didn't do that, or either I saved more than that or less. There have been times when, like during lean times, when I couldn't do that at certain times, like right after I went through that divorce, which was a long time ago. That was a tough year, and I couldn't pay my quarterlies that year. That was a tough year, right? Took me another year to get on my feet, but those have definitely been the exceptions. Most of my career since once I understood all this stuff,
Mhm.
I just it's just off the top. 20% goes set aside. I got it, easy peasy. Yeah.
And who gave you that initial advice? Was that your accountant? Was that somebody in the industry? Who gave you that 20% number?
I think originally I had a tax preparer, so not a bookkeeper or a CFP, anything like that. It was just somebody who did taxes. And I didn't even understand. I didn't know quarterly taxes were a thing. I'd never heard of that. I didn't know you even had to do that. And I was upset in the beginning. Like, what do you mean I have to do that? And this is in the beginning when I wasn't making hardly anything because I was so bad at it. Right. So it was hard. I think he was the original one. But since then, I've seen that idea. I've seen lots of different ideas, but that particular one I've heard a lot of people say. So it's not an unusual, it's a common practice now. And it's what I teach people to do. Yeah.
Like it, like it. So you paid your taxes, you paid your business expenses. Now you have to take a distribution to run your lifestyle. Um,
Yeah.
what was your thought and progression over the years on how do I take money out of the business to do the things I want to do in my personal life?
Oh, bless your heart. That's a big subject. So the hardest thing about the kind of work we do is managing an irregular income, right? And like Dave Ramsey has an idea about how to do that. Different people teach different ways of doing that. I've tried it all. I've tried it all. Back when I had an insurance-based practice, I got paid $20 from this person, 30 from that one, 150 from that one, $2 from. I mean, it was like all over the map, and it was insane. I've tried everything. Where I'm at today, I'll tell you how I do it today. And this is sort of it's it's a little bit profit first. It's a little bit bits and pieces I've learned from different people like you. Okay, so I've read a lot of books. I've worked with a lot of podcasts. I mean, I've listened to a lot of podcasts. Today, I do have a bookkeeper. I didn't for probably 20 years. Today, I have an accountant. I didn't for a long time because I didn't know I needed it. That's helped. It's taught me a lot as well. But today, one of the common ideas is to take all the income you have, dump it into a revenue account, and pay yourself a flat weekly, biweekly, monthly salary out of that. That was also hard for me. That's never really worked because it's been so up and down. So what I have landed on, and you may fuss at me. I might get a little coaching here in a minute. What I have landed on for like the last few years that has really worked really well is no matter where the revenue comes from, and I get it from different places. I have an Airbnb as well. I didn't say that, but I also have an Airbnb. So I get money a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. All of it goes into one revenue account. I call it a revenue account. So it's like the parking place for money. From there, I split it up into three different places and I do that by percentages. So I'm just going to keep this simple. If I made $100 this week, I'm going to put a certain percentage of that in operations. So I have an account for operations in my business. A certain percent of that's going to go into that tax savings account, the 20%, and a certain amount goes into that, what I call an owner pay set aside. It's like the account I'm setting aside money to pay myself out of. Okay. So I split it those three ways. I have played with those percentages over time and have kind of landed at a place where it's working for me. The operations account that covers my content director for the podcast, covers my executive assistant, covers my the 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 financial people, a bookkeeper, covers malpractice insurance, office rent, buying supplies, software subscriptions. That's operations. In the past, one of the mistakes I've made is letting that number get too high. I could justify anything as a business expense. So I spent way more than I should because I'm like, oh, it's fine. I can do that. It's a business expense. It's a tax write-off. Easy. And ended up like doing so much of that I didn't have much left to pay me. That was a big mistake. I have fixed that. I don't do that anymore. So inside my business accounts, I have those 4 accounts. Okay. Out of that, what I do of that owner's pay, I pull out 90% of that. So I leave 10% as a cushion, and that grows over time. So I have an owner's pay account that is just sort of it's just like an extra savings. Like if I ever really needed it, if I got into trouble, I've got a little extra I can pull from. In my own payment, so I pay myself, I set aside 5% in what I call, wait a minute, back that up. In those accounts, what am I missing here? I'm missing something. Oh, I know what it is. Yeah, there's a 4th one. I'm sorry that I'm forgetting that I didn't. I kept thinking 3 didn't sound right. There's a 4th one. The 4th one is my profit first account. So I pull off. I'm sorry. I'm not good at this, Randall. I'm not good at this. This is why I stumble over this stuff. So revenue account is where the entry point. From there, it gets split into operations, owner's pay, set aside, tax savings, and a profit first account. And there, I just put 5%, just 5%. But that's like a dividend account that I just let grow. And then sometimes once a quarter, sometimes twice a year, I'll pull money out of that for something special, just for fun.
It's like a treat. It's like a reward, that 5%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really good. I like the fact that you mentioned that I have to have the discipline on my operating expenses.
Yes.
Because a lot of people default, I can write this off. I can write this trip off. I can write but there's no true business justification at times to do it. And it's so tempting because we're trying not to pay that much in taxes.
Yeah.
So I think that's humongous. And I'm a big
That was
fan.
a big mistake. Really, really big mistake I made. It took me a while to figure that one out. Yeah.
It's easy to fall
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of functional simplicity. If it works, keep on going. Now, we have the self-payment process. Now, practices do not get a large business valuation when we sell. We all know that. Most practice owners will just walk away from their business and not receive any proceeds when they sell. How do you become independently wealthy from your practice? What are your plans to do that today?
Yeah, I'm still working on that one. I will say along those lines. So part of the price I paid. So I started my first private practice in the early 90s, before there was an internet. Like that's how old I am. And there were no coaches. There were no books. Like I would go to conferences in my industry and try to find trainings on how to run a business. It was just you just knew it. People just assume, right? And if you were a woman, especially, and I'm a social worker. I wasn't a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They had there's a whole nother thing for them. I was so there's so many, like I've done episodes where I just talk about the mistakes I made. One of the mistakes I made, because I just didn't know any better and nobody told me, was I did not design my practice from the beginning to sell it. I did not design it that way. I didn't know to do it that way. I rented a building. I rented a 3-story Victorian house. In the beginning, it was just we just had 1 floor, and then eventually we expanded and took the 2nd floor. By the time I left there, we had the whole house. I could have bought that house 3 times over for what I paid for it. I didn't know that I should have bought a building. I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes I made. By the time I wanted to do that, the person who owned it wouldn't consider selling it because we were a great deal for them. Like, why would they want to sell it, right? I regret that. I do know people who I've talked to people about selling a business. I knew nothing about that. If I had to do over again, I would have bought a building early on. I would have set up my business structure differently than I did because I didn't know what I was doing. I would have been making a profit from it from the very beginning. And I would have worked with somebody like you to kind of have in mind that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when I'm ready to retire, I'm going to want to walk away from that. And when I do, I'll sell the client list, I'll sell the brand, I'll sell the track record we have of income, and I'll have a building that it comes with. But I've not done that, and I'm not at that place anymore because I let that go, and I don't I'm in a completely different place these days. Yeah,
We
yeah.
understand. We talked about paying taxes, distributing money to yourself. What's left over, and it's probably in your business expense operating account. How do you reinvest that money back into your business? What are the things that
Yeah.
you're spending on today that you're seeing a good bang for your buck?
Oh, my team. I
Ah,
could not live without them. Yeah. And it has. I had three. I mean, I'm a small business, but I've had Queenie Verhoeven, who is my technically you would call her a VA, but she's like 10 times more than that. She has been with me. I call her my executive assistant. Really, she's my right hand woman and my brain. I've had her for 10 years. I would have her full time if I could get her. She lives in, she's from the Philippines, but lives in Amsterdam or just outside of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. If I could get her to move here, I've been trying for 10 years to get her to move here. Yeah, I couldn't function without Queenie. And then about 2 years ago, I hired a person who has become my content director for the podcast. Briefly, I had an editor who handled the editing for me. She stepped out to have her first child and has opted not to come back. And the truth is, I can handle the editing myself, so I didn't really need that. It was really nice to have for a while, but this comes under getting your ducks in a row financially. I was really, my expenses were higher than they needed to be. They were exceeding the threshold I wanted them to have. I have like a certain limit. I don't want to go over this percent. And so when that happened, I decided to just let that stay and just took that back over myself. But my team, I just can't tell you like what a difference they make in my life in terms of freeing me up to do what I need to do. In the past, I have invested heavily in coaching. I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in coaching over the last, well, I hired my first coach in 2006 because I
wow.
was doing all that speaking
Yeah.
and not making any money from it technically. I wanted to learn how to get paid to speak. So I hired my very first coach to teach me how to charge for a talk. Um, and then that's evolved over time. I have spent quite a bit of money on coaching. I do not regret any of that because it has completely transformed my business and my life. So I'm not currently working with a coach, but I don't really need it at this point. Um, I am part of a mastermind. Do you know what a mastermind is?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But please explain for those who don't know.
Yeah. So I've worked with a variety of coaches, all of whom taught me what I needed at the time.
Mhm.
As I grew, I needed a more advanced level of coaching. And I eventually landed in a program that I was in for 7 years, led by somebody in Western North Carolina who had like, we had 100 to 130 people in that program at any given time from all over the world. And I sort of feel like everything I know that's worth anything I learned in that program because the coach, the woman who taught it, was so phenomenal. That program ended in 2020. She was ready to let that go, and for I mean, she was exhausted, I suspect. And the pandemic changed everything for all of us, right? But there were a group of us who had grown up through her, sort of grown up professionally or as business owners, and so there were 10 of us that came out of that and elected to keep our own mastermind going. These often fail. Ours has lasted. We've been meeting for 5 years since then, right? We meet once a quarter for 2 days online because we're scattered out all over the country, all different kinds of businesses. We meet for all afternoon on those 2 days, and we have a co-working session in the middle often. And what we do during that time is first a general catch up because we haven't talked to each other in 3 months. And then, all right, so where's your business today? What are you working on? What question do you have today? What kind of help do you want today? And very intentionally, we bring to the group, here's something in my business that I could use some help with. It might just be help naming something. It might be help with a difficult client. It might be I'm designing a new program and I'm wondering which of these elements makes the most sense. It might be I'm having a mindset issue and I can't seem to get out of my own way about this thing I'm afraid of. Like whatever it is, it's all different kinds of things, but it's very structured. So like timed, it's quite disciplined. So you're next. What's your question? What do you need help with? And then we brainstorm solutions. And it's sort of like a mutual peer support group, but I'm keep hitting my microphone. I can't talk without my hands, so I hit my microphone. We share mutual support and accountability. So here are some suggestions we have. Here's where we see you getting into trouble. Here's what we think you might want to consider, right? And to keep ourselves on track and growing over time and to maintain momentum. That's what a mastermind is. The concept is that when a group of people come together, they create a mastermind that is healthy, that is sort of the sum, bigger than the sum of the whole, bigger than the parts, that imparts wisdom for everybody present. So, yeah.
I've been part of different masterminds. Some people call them study groups. Because your mastermind has lasted so long, what is one key element you think that holds that group together? I'm assuming it's a lot of folks that are high powered, extremely busy, life goes on, changes. What is the element that keeps people coming back?
Two things. Three things. One is we were very intentional about who we invited to join it.
Okay.
And that leads to the second thing, which was we wanted people who were at a relatively similar level business wise. So not too far behind, not too far ahead. Like if you have been in business for 10 years, you're in a very different place than someone who's just getting started. If you're at a 6-figure level, you're in a different place from someone who's just made their first 20,000. If you're at a 7-figure level, which we are not, like you need something different. So we very deliberately invited people to join this 10 people mastermind who were at similar levels in terms of their business experience and growth and development. Okay. And then the third thing I would say, it helped that we had all been in that program because we had a similar language,
Okay. Yeah.
but I don't know that that's critical. I think the third thing that has made the biggest difference is the discipline. We schedule the year's worth of meetings in December. So it's on the books. We meet from 2 to 5 on Thursday and Friday afternoon, once a quarter. On the Thursday, we have a very specific structure. On the Friday, we have a different structure. On Friday mornings, I will host a 2-hour co-working session, which is where we basically all come online, meet. What are you going to work on? Okay, turn off your camera, but you're still on Zoom. Go off and work on it. Come back and check in, like an accountability thing. So it's like a blitz kind of working session. If you're trying to write copy and you can't get yourself to write it, that's a good thing to do. So we do that on Friday morning. Friday afternoon, we do the mastermind piece. And we set a timer. Each person gets 15 minutes. We have a way that we decide who goes next. We take a break halfway through it. And I mean, we're pretty strict about that. And I think the structure and the discipline, the regularity of it, all of that helps.
And then I think what you're saying to that structure is gonna attract a certain type of people, which you guys have pre-selected.
Yeah.
I never thought about having a timer for somebody to speak because that sometimes is what I would say deter people away because it's always one or two that takes most of the talking.
This is true in any group dynamic. And we have those too. You have your storytellers. I've run a lot of groups in my life. I have facilitated masterminds. I've led tons and tons and tons and tons of groups in all different kinds of scenarios. And one of the skill of a group leader or facilitator is to manage that, right? You'll have the quiet ones who never say anything. and you'll have the ones who dominate. And there's an art to that, to balancing that out. And that's a skill I have just from so much experience. But in this case, this is peer led. I'm not facilitating it. We all are. But we have all agreed to that structure, and we follow, like we have a timer on the screen. So you know when your time's up, and that helps. Yeah.
I love. How would you define prosperity for your business now? Like, what does prosperity look for you today?
Two things. The number one for me really is time. So, like, I just got an offer from a good friend just 2 weeks ago I haven't even talked to in a year, and just we had a catch up call. How you been? What's up in your life? She's traveling full time. Turns out she's got tickets and a campsite at a 3-day music festival in Washington State at the end of May. And she's like, you should come. And I'm like, I think you're right. And I had not planned to do that. But not only am I doing that, but I'm going to build a 2-week vacation around that, by golly. So I have just, like, literally in the last few days made a decision to go to this really super cool music festival. And while I'm at it, turn it into a trip. Rent a car and go wandering around the Pacific Northwest. That is prosperity to me, to have the freedom to be able to do that. But what supports that, besides the fact that I'm my own boss and I can decide if I want to take time off, is that I have the finances in place that I can do that. And that structure I was talking to you about, where I have a revenue account and I split it up these different ways, I feel so much better, Randall. Like, this is a really big thing for me. I've been in business for 30 something years, and it's really in the last 5 maybe that I feel like I have finally kind of got some of this stuff figured out. Like that, I never pretend like I'm the be all end all, because I am so not. I'm the poster child for mistakes of this stuff. But this structure means I am in better shape than I've ever been, like in terms of safety, foundation. Like I've got pockets in different places where I'm fine, and I can coast a little bit if I need to. It's really great. So I see clients that I love. I really genuinely love my clients on the coaching and the counseling side. I love my work. I love the podcast, but I can do all of that remotely. So if I want to, I can even do that while I'm traveling. I don't have to, but I can. So prosperity to me and freedom is being able to go where I want to go when I want to go, and being able to afford it financially without any stress. And I'm kind of there.
I really appreciate you sharing your account system, because a lot of people spin their wheels, chase their tails, like what works. And they can take what you've done and kind of adapt it to what they're doing day in and day out.
Yeah.
So Wendy, if somebody's listening to this, they say, hey, maybe I need some level of counseling. I fit her demographic of somebody who needs her services, or they want to know more about you. What is the best way they can reach out to you and engage with your content?
Thank you. If you're a practice owner or thinking about joining a practice, honestly, one of the things I would recommend is to listen to my podcast. It's called Ideal Practice. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find Randall on there, where he would teach you how to read a P&L, which was great. You'll learn a lot about how I think and who I am. And I really do try to make that very practical and inspiring and kind of fun. So that's a really good way to go. I would love to share with you guys. So my website is my name, wendypittsreeves.com. If you're interested in the counseling side of things, I can work with anybody inside Tennessee. I am only licensed in Tennessee, but I'm happy to talk to you about that. Most of what I want to share is that I told you earlier that the biggest issue to me that I see people tripping over all the time really is the money stuff and the way we feel about it, making peace with profit, that idea. I have I call it a small but mighty course on money mindset. It's called Mind Over Money. It's a 31-day, just a little drip every day. You get a little something in your inbox that you can read in 5 minutes, or if you'd rather, you can listen to it on audio while you're walking your dog, where I will give you like strategies like we've talked about today, but also just little nuggets about how to pay attention to the way you think about the money and your day-to-day work with your clients. It's normally $97 for this product. There's my product. But I can give you a promo code where you can get $50 off of that. So it's basically over half and it's $47. The promo code is ideal 50, the number 50. So ideal 50. If you'll put that promo code in, it'll cut it in half. And I just had somebody just this week tell me how much they're getting out of this little course. And I didn't say this, but it comes with a journal, and not a physical journal, but a digital journal where you can capture the things you're noticing about your thoughts as you listen to these little daily prompts, which I think you'll find really helpful. So the way to get to that, wendypittsreeves.com, wendypittsreeves.com/mind, MIND.
And we'll make sure we put those details in the show notes so you can click down there and get that opportunity. And I think just listen to this show tells you how strategically she thinks and how she's able to empathetically guide you through the next steps of growing your practice. So thank you very much, Wendy Pitts Reeves. She's a licensed clinical social worker, a practice coach, and she offers an online coach to change your mindset about money to really allow you to live the life that you want. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Randall. This has been fun. You've indulged me. I really appreciate that.
No, it's been good. You take care.
Thank you.
Feeling the pressure? You're not alone. I'm Randall Avery with Diesel Wealth Management, and I specialize in simplifying wealth for those who are near retirement and business owners. We'll create a plan that fits your unique needs so you can actually enjoy the wealth that you built. We consider our firm results driven with a touch of fun. Ready for clarity? Click to learn more and schedule your free discovery call. Let's build the financial future together.
The more I know, the more money I can make.